So over lunch today, I was at Hy-Vee. I needed to pick up a cantaloupe and a watermelon for one of the cross-country team dinners tonight, and I was really kind of struggling on time today. Really, like, I've got lots of things that have to get done before today is over, and so I looked real quick and I was like, I'll just grab cut up watermelon. False. I will not grab a cut up watermelon because it was like 3 times the price. And I was like, all right, then I'll just grab a cut up cantaloupe. False. I will also not do that because for half of a cantaloupe, it was $6.99. For a whole cantaloupe, it was $2.99. And I'm like, I can cut a cantaloupe up pretty fast. The only reason I'm telling you this is, one, I need to cut up a cantaloupe. And two, tonight we're kicking off a brand new series called Tik Tock. And it's not just this idea of trying to save time and save money. Sometimes there are shortcuts in those things. And that's why we like to use things like microwaves, air fryers, Instapots, because we like things like this. And at times, we often feel that Jesus should respond like a microwave. Punch your time in, bang, everything's heated up, and you get what you want. It's not how it works. So we're kicking it off tonight with a series that we're calling Tik Tock. No, not cool dances. There might be a dance involved. But what we're really dealing with is this idea of waiting on God's timing. So the cantaloupe and watermelon are all cut up. And cross-country team, hopefully you enjoy those tonight. Anyway, we are kicking off a brand new series called Tik Tock. I know you guys worked on a dance earlier tonight. I'm sure it was fantastic. But we're getting into a story that is probably not often shared. It's a story of a woman who had a severe medical issue, as well as this guy named Jairus, whose daughter was sick and dying. So we're going to be in Luke chapter 8, starting with verse 40. And if it's okay with you, we're just going to kind of work through it. You guys are going to read the story in just a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of tell you the story. So you've got Jesus, who has just got done doing a ton of different things fairly early in his ministry. Whether it's calming the storm, he crosses over, he casts a demon out of a demon-possessed man. Well, not just a demon, legion, lots of demons out of this guy, sends him into a herd of pigs. They died, drowned actually, and so the people weren't a huge fan of how that all went down. And then he's like kind of snatched up by this guy named Jairus. And Jairus is a synagogue leader, meaning he's very high up in Jewish society and understands all of that type of stuff. But he knows the power of Jesus, and he's like, basically like, hey, my daughter's about to die. This is a very important moment of my life. You need to come and heal her. I believe that you could heal her. And he's just like, all right, let's go. And so as he's going, the crowds are everywhere all around him. They're just, and it actually says the crowds nearly crushed him. I mean, it was just everywhere. It's like that, like, oh, it's like Black Friday at Walmart, if you've ever been there, and there's just people everywhere. Or like you're at a Husker game, and there's just people all over you, bumping, touching, all this stuff. And Jesus stops. He's like, who touched me? Which is such kind of a funny question. Really what it came down to was like he eventually says, I felt the power leave me. He says, I did, like this healing power of the Spirit. And this woman who didn't really say anything at first comes forward. She's like, I touched. She just touched the hem of his robe, just like where it's been sewn. Just touch that. And there were a lot of people that were touching Jesus, bumping into him. So what was it about her that made it good? Well, here's the other thing. You need to keep, like, Jesus going to Jairus' house, and Jairus is like, Jesus, we got to go. My daughter's dying. And Jesus turns and has a conversation with this woman. This woman had been very sick for many, many years, 12 years. She had this severe medical condition. And what you'll read in here is basically what it came down to. The translation, it says she had used all of her money to try to find a cure. It actually says in verse 43, it said, but no one could heal her. Translated in English, that's what we read. In Greek, it's translated, she had used all of her money with doctors. So Jesus heals this woman, like, immediately. He says, your faith has healed you. Nobody else had been touching Jesus that day was healed. It doesn't, at least it's not recorded. But this woman was healed. That's powerful. And at the same time, Jairus is like, hey, we've got to go. Well, at that moment, Jairus gets word from his house. Someone comes and just drops the bomb. Just like doesn't ease into it at all, but just says, Jairus, your daughter's dead. Leave the teacher alone. Now, we don't know exactly how Jairus responded in that moment because it doesn't really give him a chance to. Jesus goes, let's go to your house. So Jesus and Jairus go, and the mourners had already showed up. They've got these professional mourners who just come and they wail and they make terrible noises in the house. And it's just this terrible howling, screaming sadness. And Jesus is like, everybody out, except for Peter, James, John, mom, dad, myself. Let's go. And they're like, but she's dead. And he's like, she's asleep. She was dead. She was dead. So they go in and he touches her and he says, hey, get up. And somebody get her something to eat right away, please. Done. Healed. Alive again. That's a crazy deal. There are moments in life when I think we look at Jesus like a microwave, where we just punch some numbers in, spits the food back out in 2 minutes, and it's hot and it's ready to eat. And that's what it is. We don't own an Instapot at our house. I would like to. I think it'd be cool, especially on like football nights when we're like, hey, I'd like to eat a really good meal, but we've got 6 minutes to prepare it. Bang, Instapot, done. And it works really well like that. And I think, unfortunately, that's oftentimes how we approach Jesus, with this like wish list of things that we want and we think that we get, and we think that we are just basically like expected to receive, and we're not willing to wait on his timing. That's hard. That's hard. Patience, very difficult. Show of hands right now, how many of you would say you struggle with the idea of patience? Not just with God, but just being an impatient person. I am. I'm super impatient. That's just part of who I am, but it doesn't mean that's where I need to stay. I'm trying to work on this idea of being patient, not just with regular people, but with the King of the universe. There's a lot of things that I'm like, God, it would be great if you would like help me do, like give me opportunities to, if I could have not a wish list so much, but more of a heart list where I'm like, hey, I want to do my best to live like you. And every day I fail that miserably. But at the same time, we need to be patient and wait on the Lord. In Psalm chapter 40, I love the words of David as he explains his relationship with God. And you guys are going to read that, verses 1 through 3. But he just says this. He goes, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me and heard my cry. God's attentive to our needs. Then he says this, he lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire, like the grossness of life. And he set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. It says, many will see and fear the Lord, for I will yet praise you, my Savior and my God. Like, David gets it. Like, we need to work on being patient because God is a God of love, but God's ways are so much higher than our ways. And Jairus got to see the power of Jesus Christ in his home that day. Tonight, you're going to talk about this idea of what does this look like on a day-to-day basis? And how can we continue to learn from the life of Jairus, but at the same time, learn to be patient with the King of the universe?